Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we have some very interesting Chicago Cubs news. The Cubs are apparently already interested in a very interesting player. I like this news coming out of the Chicago Cubs. I actually touched on this in my Chicago weekly recap video because of the timing that I recorded that video. I had saw the news there first. The article had came out actually while I was researching for Cubs news in that video, but I thought that this deserves a separate video in and of itself. This centers around one article that I see coming out of Chicago. The Chicago Cubs potentially interested in looking into Willy Adames at shortstop. This comes as a very big surprise to me because, one, you got Dansby Swanson, and he's locked up for another 5 years. I think he had a 7-year contract, so yeah, he's there for another 5 years. So that would involve one of two things happening. Either one, this tells me a couple of things. One, the Chicago Cubs are probably trading Nico Hoerner, which I did touch on this in my weekly recap video as well. I believe that Nico Hoerner has some sort of no trade clause in his contract, just like Ian Happ's, because I believe their two contracts were structured very, very similarly. I believe that he has some no trade in there somewhere, so that'd be very interesting to see how that works out. So either A, you're going to trade Nico Hoerner to pick up Willy Adames, but then what do you do with Willy Adames or Dansby Swanson, because they're both shortstops? Now, I know that Willy Adames is quite a bit like a Javi Baez type player. He could play shortstop and second, or you could move Dansby Swanson to second. I think it would fare better if Adames played second and Dansby stayed at shortstop. However, I would not argue one way or the other. One reason why I find this to be very, very interesting is because Craig Counsell has quite a history with Willy Adames. When Adames was drafted, he went to Milwaukee, and he played under Craig Counsell for his entire career up until this year when Counsell came to the Cubs. And, Willy Adames is a very, very, very solid offensive production player. And that's exactly what the Cubs are after. We have decent offensive production on the Cubs when you look at the year as a whole. I understand that you had May and June, or June and July, that were really slow for Cubs offensive production. However, you're looking to add slug. That is the biggest thing going into the offseason. I think that there are a couple of people that will pick up that slug for next year, one of those which being Isaac Paredes. However, Adames hit 34 home runs this year. I think that he's one of the answers that you guys are looking for offensively anyways. I think that Adames would be a very good fit for the way that this team plays. I think that he would be a very good fit to pair up with Dansby Swanson, no matter which one plays short and which one plays second. I would love to go and snag a guy from, Wrigley North, as it is so nicknamed. I think that, and to be fair too, anytime that the Brewers come down to Wrigley, I feel like Willy Adames is always hitting a home run at Wrigley Field. So, you get that kind of production for the whole season as a whole. That would be fantastic. I would love to see it. But yeah, quite the interesting news article. I did not see this one coming. Again, it's just a rumor. It's just a speculation. The offseason doesn't officially begin until like 4 or 5 days after the World Series anyways. However, to be putting feelers out there, or for people to be reporting on it this early, it must hold some weight, or the Cubs would be the likely landing spot for Adames just because of Craig Counsell. They're already well acquainted with each other. They know how each other's play the game. There's things like that to be affected. So, and that's not just if, Counsell was at the Cubs. I think if, Counsell was in Boston, then that would make Boston a landing spot for Adames. Because, we've seen it a lot of times where throughout all professional sports, when a coach goes somewhere, when someone's contract is coming up, sometimes they tend to go where their old coaches. So, do I think that, it's a lock that it'll absolutely happen? No, not really. I think we got to wait for, that offseason to start, get through winter meetings and see how that goes. But to already be seeing some type of article reported that Cubs could be a lockdown spot just because of Adamas's and Council's relationship makes that quite the interesting conversation. Like I said, me personally, I would not mind seeing that whatsoever. I like I said, I think that he would be the guy that you're looking for in production lulls in the offense. If you got to put the offense on someone's shoulders, it would be Willy Adames. Let's be honest. Because I stated this in my weekly recap video that the Cubs started their offense way better than they did in 2023, and they ended about the way that they did in 2023. But then you got that 2-month gap in the middle where nobody could produce, which absolutely sucked. Because if you could take that 2 months and shrink it to one, you're in the postseason on a wild card. That's just how we were close enough that just that 1 month could have made the difference. I think that Willy Adames is that difference. You're looking at a guy who, sure, he only hit 251 or 252, but when he gets those home runs, they're big time home runs, they're grand slams, they're 2-run home runs, they're 3-run home runs. And yeah, sure, there's solo home runs in there too, but his home runs are always big, they're always loud, and they're always when it counts. That's what the Cubs need on their offense right now. I think that Bellinger might opt back in. I think that he would go back to where he was more in 2023 than how he produced in 24. I think that, Suzuki is expanding, just being at a DH level where he doesn't have to worry about playing the game on the defensive side. He can just worry about his at-bats, which is good. I think Paredes, after having a half a year with the Cubs, I think that he's going to open up his production next year too. And then you got your guys like Ian Happ, that's always solid through the year. You got Dansby Swanson, who should be solid through the year. And then you got Michael Busch, who no one saw, being the player that he was. I think he'll only get better. So you add an absolute superstar, and I'm just gonna look this back up real quick because I want to see what the number looked like when I read this. Yeah, it says Chicago Cubs target with Craig Counsell ties predicted to land $144 million contract. That doesn't look like a bad number at all. To be honest, it says regarding his price, Joel Reuter of Bleacher Report predicts him to land at 6 years, 144. You got Dansby at 177, I believe. So I'll call it. I think he's a superstar. I think that he's got those superstar numbers, and he's only 27. He's going into, he turns 28 during next year. Or I'm sorry, he recently turned 29. I'm sorry. The picture showed on this is him at 27. So I apologize for that. But he like I said, when he comes to Chicago, he's always hitting home runs. I think that Counsell could definitely sway that conversation. I just hope that Jed Hoyer is listening. In a 118 OPS plus, now that I'm looking at these numbers, his slash line is 251, 331, 462. This season, he hit career high marks in hits 153, doubles 33, home runs 32, RBIs 112, and 93 runs scored with 21 bases stolen. Yeah, that is the 2016 Javier Baez. Okay, that's the guy that you want on your team. Like I said, trying to figure out who would actually play short and second. That conversation could be had after he's signed. I hope that this news is true. I really hope that the Cubs go after him. we will see what happens with that. However, with that, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I will catch you in the next one.